Ooh, Eleanor. Oh, I didn't see you there. How are you? No, really. How are you? Answer me. Say it to your screen. We will both sit here until you verbally tell me how you are doing. I can tell you didn't say anything. That's probably a good sign. After my extensive research through my Intro to Psychology class, I can fairly assess that if you had verbally told me how you were doing, that you would be deemed mentally unstable. So, congratulations. If you did tell me how you were doing, well, you're more fun, so at least you have that. But back to my original question, how are you? I'll wait. You know what? Sorry to interrupt, but let's get down to business. Let me move to a more professional location. Much better. See, isn't it nice to be in a spot where there's no virtual background to fool you? Or is there? It's real. It's real. Now, let's get to the important matters. And now for the part of the video where I heavily rely on my script because I didn't have the foresight to memorize any more lines than I already have. I need to share with you my findings of how social media usage can affect your mental health. I find this topic extremely relevant today considering how many people find it important to stay connected. It's also interesting to examine social media usage among different age groups considering the research that we've done in this class on lifespan development. Which age groups seem to be more at risk for being negatively impacted by social media? Is social media usage inherently bad, and who the hell am I to be telling you any of this? Who am I? I'm Psychology Man. I've found various viewpoints on this issue. Some articles I've read claim social media has little to no effect on adolescent mental health. Some claim it's an obvious and explicit cause of the heightened anxiety and depression among social media users. What I will be presenting today is not only the specific information that I found surrounding this topic, but also my personal viewpoint on the subject given my esteemed title of Psychology Man. Ironically, the psychology part is not as widely critiqued as the man part. One helpful area of psychology to examine in reference to social media usage is Erik Erikson's, you'd think he'd change his name or something, stage of psychological development. The way that social media operates can easily have different effects on the conflicts which arise in these stages. Today, it's common for people with the identity versus role confusion phase to enter the world of social media. That's the age of around 12 to 18, or adolescence, as you may call it. Considering the way this stage of life impacts one's life, it's easy to see why people this age are obsessed with their phones. It also raises the question if social media is specifically designed to target the people within this age group. Food for thought. When it comes down to it, social media is probably not an inherently bad thing, but the way many people use it could be harmful for their mental health. I don't know why I'm talking like a news reporter. This is not how I talk. It just feels natural. I'm Psychology Man, after all. Don't analyze this barrier, this character that I'm doing as a way to hide the real me. We are in a psychology class. When it comes down to it, social media is probably not an inherently bad thing, but the way many people use it could be harmful for their mental health. In this adolescent stage of life, kids struggle with how others view them, both physically and emotionally. Social media could allow kids in this age range to take the fear of being watched home with them and then attribute the likes that they get on certain posts to their self-worth. If they decide not to use social media, this can also be a way that they can be seen as outcasts from their friends. On the other hand, social media can be an opportunity for kids to feel more connected and engaged with their peers, which could give them a stronger sense of identity and establish more independence. I had a mini stroke at the end of that sentence there, sorry. In my personal opinion, and based on the research that I've done, I would say that kids who are more prone to anxiety and critique from other students their age will probably have heightened issues as a result of this extension of their social life, but it is pretty case to case from what it seems from my research as well, so it all depends. Adults are also not unable to feel this envy or confusion in these ways as well, but most adults also don't have issues with identifying their role in life and therefore aren't as self-conscious about who they are in reference to the people around them. Or in other words, they've gone out of this previous phase in life and now probably don't have as many issues surrounding comparing themselves to other people. They're a lot more focused on their goals and the real-world realities of growing older, and so identity is something that has established them to reach the ability to move into their next phase of life. I nailed that sentence. I believe this is why many of the studies I found center around adolescence, but perhaps because the older generations didn't grow up with the same technology, this would mean that they might not have a similar dependency that younger people have since they did grow up with it, so that could also be a factor which influences the difference of people who are affected by social media. The long-term effects of social media are still unknown, considering that it is still kind of a developing area of our society where it's being added to every day. But the current implications are important to understand in order to further the knowledge of how we react to different environments and situations throughout our life. One critique that I found of these findings is that the anxieties of our time can be attributed to heightened economic and political pressure in the world, which are generally scary for people of any age, really, once you can start researching those types of things. I would argue that this idea directly corresponds with social media use as well. Being an active follower of current political issues is an integral part of social media nowadays, and the exposure to these things from a young age can certainly add a lot of stress on a person's life. Though I do believe that it is important to advocate for different current issues happening in the world, and social media is a really powerful tool to do so, it's very easy to be swallowed up by the anxieties of our time if one is to spend too much time hearing about them on their phones. It's a slippery slope, and considering the dependency that many people have on their technology, it's clear to see why many people struggle to detach themselves from these overwhelming issues. Conformity is also an interesting element of social media to explore. Group mentalities, which we've explored in this class and our readings as well, prove to be persuasive under various circumstances, and so social media could be a culprit for people to alter their opinions and beliefs as a way to follow the pack. There is definitely an anxiety not to be seen as non-inclusive or not to have outdated values online. And so if you're signing up to stay connected with your friends online, you're often also signing up to voice your support for different issues. This is probably a good thing for most people, but the pressure is still there either way, and this area of psychology seemed applicable to this aspect of social media and the pressure that especially younger people probably feel on a regular basis nowadays. And now to kind of wrap up all of these ideas, I'm just going to read some facts that I found from a couple different articles, research articles on this topic, just to sort of give you some solid proof of some of the negative effects that social media can have on anxiety and depression. So this question is, does sleep loss associated with use of social media affect mental health? And based on some other research that I found, and I'm sure many of you know, that getting a proper amount of sleep every night is a very important aspect, especially in younger people, for the development of the brain, and also just for your general mood and your alertness throughout your day and attentiveness. So if your social media usage is interfering with your sleep, if you're using your phone right before bed, then that is an area where this may be harmful for you. An analysis of U.S. annual survey data found an abrupt increase in the proportion of adolescents getting insufficient sleep after 2011 to 2013. And what I found in actually a different article was that this is the time around when social media went from just being something that people were kind of interested in to actually being more of a necessity, especially in younger people, for their social life. The study also showed an exposure-response relationship between daily electronic media use beyond 2 or more hours per day and insufficient sleep. And I'm sure that we're all aware that when we scroll over to the side in our phones and see the time spent on different apps, that we definitely may or may not surpass the 2-hour mark. So it's kind of an important thing to know, probably. In a 14-day randomized crossover experimental study under well-controlled conditions, the use of electronic screens before bedtime was shown to disrupt sleep in multiple ways: longer time to fall asleep and decreased evening sleepiness, reduced melatonin secretion, circadian clock delay, reduced amount and delay in rapid eye movement sleep, and reduced next morning alertness. So pretty much everything that sleep is supposed to be is worse when you use your phone before bed. Again, this is probably something that a lot of people do. So, yeah. The next question that this article answers is, how has use of social media been shown to affect adolescents' sense of self? And one part of it talks about FOMO, fear of missing out. I'm sure that that's something that we've all related to, especially at younger ages, when we were first starting to use social media. It also says a systematic review of 20 studies found that use of social media was associated with body image concerns and disordered eating. In a randomized study, female participants reported more negative mood after just 10 minutes of browsing their Facebook account compared with those who browsed an appearance-neutral control website. And I'm sure that's also something that hits close to home for a lot of people. Anxiety and depression is definitely a target hit, and I have thought about this before, where it's like obviously they're profiting off of your usage of the app with ads, and the whole point of social media is to kind of promote yourself in a way and put yourself out there, and you also follow, models, and it works similarly to how fashion magazines are critiqued with body dysmorphia issues and people altering their images online. And the effects of that are pretty well known, and that's probably obvious to a lot of people, but it is definitely worth noting in this overall review of how social media can affect anxiety and depression and body image issues and stuff like that. Basically, this article has a lot of really great information, and I'm going to link every source that I used in the description of this video. So if you're interested in learning more about any of these problems, if you feel like they might relate to you at all, then feel free to go look at those, because they are very helpful. But yeah, in conclusion, it's definitely something to look out for if you feel like you are more at risk for being negatively impacted by social media. And I think one of the most important steps is really just acknowledging what works for you and what doesn't, and finding the root of a lot of your issues. And I'm sure some of the people in this class who are watching this have probably already figured out some stuff like this. but maybe not. I still find myself being negatively impacted by social media on a regular basis in terms of anxiety and depression. So it's definitely something to look out for. But really, I'm just glad that I could share my perspective with you, because you know that you're getting it from the most legit and respected psychologists on the planet. Thank you for joining me for this monthly session from Psychology.